No, if I drink a lot of water, then it's blue. If I'm not drinking as much water, then, have more dehydrated, like yellow piss, and it turns green. Because of methylene, blue. Blue and yellow makes green.
Yeah, it does.
And we know that from experience now. This is a certainty.
We did some scientific research.
This is a certainty and a fact now. All right.
I got some ladies. She's like,
I guess Will's not going to show up.
Yeah.
You want to talk about Kamala Harris at all?
Hell yeah.
Let
me talk about this lady.
Tell me about that lady.
No,
is her name Kamala?
Nah.
Is her name?
Her name's Anne.
Is Beyonce?
No, she's older. She's actually in her 70s, man. She's a smart lady. She comes into federal. But I got her to get some methylene blue.
Good.
Yeah, it's an en route.
Good. Everybody needs it. Yeah. Everybody needs to start taking it. I listened to like a little 10-minute clip about it today from some doctor, and he said that it's actually one of the first, if not the first, synthesized medicine ever.
Yep. About 150 years ago, I believe it was.
Yeah.
The first.
Pretty well. It was like the first synthetic medicine.
Yep.
So.
And then it just got forgotten about.
Or yeah,
suppressed.
Yep. We know how that works.
Yep.
Yeah, well, with the new printing press that you guys are watching right now on your screens, this is the new age, the information age that is really a threat to power structures that want to suppress.
And this is why it's such a blessing to be alive.
It really is.
We're in the information age, and we're getting all this information, and you're gonna have to process it. We all have to process it our own.
Yeah.
See what we believe in, because information is information. Something's gonna be accurate.
You do have
some not so much, right?
Yeah.
You got to question
filters.
Curiosity. You got to be curious about everything.
Yeah.
Question everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's why we're questioning this Kamala Harris.
I'm curious about what's going to happen. Like, what I'm really curious about is, so I wrote down like at the different minutes if we wanted to actually put the podcast on or whatever, but we can also do that another time. We can do like a reacts to it. What I'm really curious about is, I think it's pretty evident to the vast majority of this country that Donald Trump is going to win the election, right? I think that the majority of people understand now that what really made this glaringly obvious at this point is the reaction to Kamala Harris's big Houston rally with Beyonce, where Beyonce is finally going to show up, and they've been talking about it in the news. And they're saying, oh, Beyonce is expected to perform and all this stuff. And so everybody comes out and everybody's at the, wherever it was, Toyota Center or something, wherever they're doing it. And they fill up the space and it's like, yeah, everybody's here. And the crowd's booing her. Like, you see the video, the clips from this? Like, the crowd is like booing Kamala Harris as she's speaking on the stage.
Yeah.
And that was her own people.
You're talking about the one from Houston?
Yeah, that was like yesterday.
I heard.
Or a day before yesterday.
I heard like where was she at the other one? Oh, in Michigan.
Yeah. Well,
Michigan,
yeah, that was back
that guy yelled at her.
That was 2 months ago or something. 2 or 3 months ago. It was back in August.
I just started seeing it.
Yeah, they started re-putting that video up.
Oh, okay.
That's a psyop probably. That's just and who knows, some of this could be, but I've seen a lot of stuff and it's really fast coming out. That's how you know it's usually this is like an actual news event versus this is an opportunistic psyop that's just taking an event that's from the recent past and then projecting it out there to try to get reactions out of people. This one I think is a lot of people on both sides of the aisle are just saying like, dude, this is not good. But what I'm saying is that with that event right next to the Joe Rogan Trump interview event, the reactions of the center is what you're looking for, right? People who are in the middle, how are they reacting to these two events? And they're reacting to Kamala Harris as like, oh, this looks like a very negative interaction, and they're reacting to Joe Rogan as, oh, well, this is a very positive interaction, because the conversation with Joe and Trump was just so, it's a Joe Rogan interview. If you didn't know who that person was, it would look just like any other Joe Rogan interview.
Yep.
Joe's so good at that because he's just sitting there talking to people, and he's just like interested. At one point, Trump is asking him questions and he's answering questions about his, how he got into the UFC, stuff and everything. And it's just a conversation.
Yeah, he laughs, they laugh, they'll chuckle, they'll banter, they'll have fun with it.
It's natural.
They'll get that. Yeah, it's genuine.
It's genuine. Yeah. And so that aspect of it makes it to where you get a real authentic feel from Donald Trump around like who he is as a person. And I would love to see Kamala Harris in that conversation.
She had those opportunities.
Yeah, and she's
we could
not,
have seen
but
who she really is.
But she hasn't said no. She just hasn't been on his show yet. So she might show up on Joe Rogan's podcast as well. He expressed that during and after that interview. Has said like, I would love to have her on, and he's totally open to it, and I will talk to her like a person and like just get to know her as who is Kamala Harris, and like that's why that category of long form conversation really works very well. And I think, to contrast that with Patrick Bet-David's style of interviewing is a little bit more of an interview than a conversation. But I really like the way that PBD interviews as far as amongst people who do interviews. He is in the top echelon of people who actually conduct interviews with people and are able to ask difficult questions in a very easy way, right? He's able to really probe and figure out a lot about people in an almost effortless conversational type of way. And he asks really interesting questions that get into the details of certain things, right? So
do you think?
And he had Eric Trump on too. And
do you think he has? Do you think PBD asked Trump better questions than the questions Joe Rogan asked Trump?
Yeah, I think he did. I think he asked, a little bit more. He was more asking those questions than Joe was just talking about a particular topic. So they both have their own technique of doing it. It's just that PBD's, he did it in an hour and 20 minutes, and Joe's took 3 hours.
Right.
So, but I didn't mind watching the Joe's podcast at all. It was fascinating. It was funny. It was like, it's natural, and you really get to see both of them kind of let their guard down a little bit. They're talking about the weave, and he's trying to call him out on like, hey, pull that weave back in, man. Let's stay focused on this topic in this conversation, And, but I mean, the whole thing is that it's obvious that Trump's favored right now. He's favored in all the betting markets. I don't know. They talked about polls in that interview too, and kind of that polls are a little bit of a tool that's used and manipulated.
That's what I've been saying this whole time. I was like, I don't believe any of these polls.
Yeah, they're there for whatever the reason. They're there for more marketing probably than actual scientific, informational content. But the feeling that you get on the street talking to people, and that when you see kind of news from both sides, is that Kamala doesn't really have much of a hope of getting into office. And to me, that's a little bit concerning. I'm more worried about Trump winning than I am about Trump losing.
Explain.
Trump is enemy number one for a reason.
What's that reason?
Well, where do you start with that one? That conversation, I mean, that conversation that they had last night is pretty interesting. Tariffs. Let's start with tariffs. Trump's all about tariffs right now. And why is he all about tariffs? And this was a real interesting thing that he brought in, that he tied into the whole COVID outbreak. So Trump was working on setting up the playing field to where he could start putting tariffs in place. And now to start out, do we know what tariffs are? You know what tariffs are?
Yeah, but it's basically taxes.
Sort of. It's not really like taxes. It's a little
Taxes on imported goods.
It's a very
and-
specific thing that's
Right.
applied to a specific good. If it's made outside the country,
Right.
you put a tariff on it, so that, like he's talking about chips in Taiwan, right? And Taiwan wants us to defend them against China. And he's like, well, why should we defend you against China? Why should we go spend our money and lives to try to defend your country against the bigger country that's next to you? In Kamala's language. China is a bigger country.
Yeah.
Taiwan is a small
country.
Yeah.
They're next to each other.
China is trying to invade
Yeah.
the small country of
Right.
Taiwan, and that's bad.
That's against democracy.
Yeah. That's against democracy. Well, okay, so why should we defend Taiwan when Taiwan stole all of our chips?
They still have our chip.
What? They did what?
Right.
So here's the thing. They didn't steal our chips the same way that China stole our chips, but what they did was they put the factories in their own country. So their economy grows because everybody has jobs in all these
Right.
chip factories. And then they sell them to our country.
Right.
So the money that we spend leaves our country and goes to Taiwan.
Right.
So what does Taiwan have that they're buying from us? Nothing.
Right.
That's a deficit.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you have that deficit, the way to alleviate that deficit is to encourage the Taiwanese people to build their plant where they produce the chips in Detroit.
Right.
So then what happens? Our economy gets better.
Right.
Our people have jobs.
Right.
And when we buy those chips,
Right.
that money, part of that money stays here
Mm-hmm.
in the country, right? Because it distributes to the workers. So what the tariff does is
Allow you to make more and
it puts pressure on Taiwan to say, hey, Taiwanese business people, not Taiwanese government, right? We don't have to build the
Right.
plants here. We just have to put the pressure on the Taiwanese business people
yeah.
to put their chip factories here in the United States.
Right.
If you put your chip factory here, we'll give you less of a tariff or no tariff, depending on how many chip factories are located here
Right.
in our country. And so what we used to do that, and he brought up President William McKinley.
Mm-hmm.
So some research I have to do to figure out who McKinley is. 'Cause I'm not, a historian,
They
but
say he was assassinated.
yep. And he was a big fan of tariffs.
Yep.
So we're starting to see where the association is. So why am I more worried about Trump getting elected than Trump not getting elected? Right? I'm not worried about him not getting elected. Obviously, he's the most popular candidate, and like people are all voting for him. Like there's tons of people out there voting for him, even people who you would never think would go out there and vote for Donald Trump. There's some people who are just like swallowing
Like
their pride, and they're
RFK?
like, I hate this.
Or Nicole
but I'm gonna
Shanahan.
fucking vote for this guy.
Right.
Yeah, and they're not even they're voting for him, but they're also like backing
They're
him on his team,
Campaigning with
with him.
They're yeah.
supporting people to vote
Yes.
for him. So I voted. Did you early vote already?
No.
I voted.
Still getting rushed.
I voted on Tuesday. The place is right behind the restaurant.
Yeah. I'll go there.
You got to get there and vote. Everybody needs to go out and early vote. Everybody needs to go out and early vote.
Yeah.
early
yeah.
vote, early vote,
Yeah.
early vote. Because so let's break that down again one more time. What I just described about tariffs.
Right.
And this is a big part of Trump's plan. And this is what he was trying to do after he started figuring out how to navigate all these people like John Bolton and all these motherfuckers that are deep state people that he's got in his
Yeah.
administration that he didn't know he didn't know how to vet him. He basically used his whole first term to vet people.
Yeah.
And so now he knows who's in, who's out, what to do here and there. And so he can make better decisions in the second 4
Mhm.
years, hopefully. Because ideas are there. So if he's all about tariffs and he's getting everything ready to start putting a bunch of tariffs on China, and then suddenly China produces this virus that escapes and starts killing people everywhere. Well, I think it's not just China. I think because the way that tariffs work, it's not that the tariff is necessarily attacking a government, it's attacking a business sector, right? So auto manufacturing, for example, if he decides to start putting tariffs on auto manufacturing, he's going to start putting tariffs on places like Mexico that have big factories that are big, auto plants that are producing vehicles and then selling them to the United States. So our money, when we buy a vehicle, is going to Mexico.
Yep. And so are our jobs.
And that's what I mean. That's our money by way of our jobs, right? That's
our money buying the cars, and then the jobs.
Our money is no longer paying an American to do that job. It's paying a Mexican to do that job. So, or it's paying a Chinaman or whatever other person to go do that job. Right. So if he's talking about really decreasing the deficit of the United States, what that's going to do is it's going to start to improve our economy, and everything is a system of balance, right? Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It only changes form. It's going to start changing form to American energy rather than all these other countries' energy. So all these other countries are getting together in little places like places called the World Economic Forum or the United Nations or the Trilateral Commission or the Council on Foreign Relations or any of these types of groups that are all based on lots of other countries that are sitting in little rooms talking about what they should do and about who to support and not support in places like the American election. You're starting to see the pieces come together. How I see
what you're saying.
Why they hate Trump.
Oh yeah, we definitely, yeah.
So that's why. Yeah. So now who is they? It's all these other countries that are going to be negatively affected by him doing things like coming in and putting tariffs on everything. Or another way to look at that would be making America great again. Because if you're wanting to make America great again in that closed loop system, that's like a zero sum system, there's at some point going to be a winner and a loser. And if America's more of a winner, then the rest of the countries are not going to win as much. So they all are going to be very adverse to that particular idea. They do not like that idea whatsoever. So when they see Trump, they see a threat to their own economies. And so they all get together and they say, Trump bad, Orange Man bad, anyone with a red hat MAGA person is bad, and they're the enemy. And then they start pumping that out into now. If they're in a position where they're going to be like, if America actually comes back in to be an actual central power of the world, which is really not right now, right? No. Russia and China or India, like a lot of countries, Saudi Arabia, like they're all coming up and they're able to form the BRICS community, and they're able to actually start getting some leverage in the world and take America out of that pole position. We want to get the fuck back into that pole position. We want to be the leaders of the world, leaders of the free world. Rookies. How can 6 dicks be pussies?
But in the right way.
We want to be the leaders of the free world, but we want to do it in the right way. And the right way to do it is by business. It's not by going out and just imperially going out and trying to start wars, So he's doing this in the right way. I think he understands the proper use of military force. He just talks about that in the Rogan interview too. He's like, I defeated ISIS in a matter of weeks. And these generals you see on TV are idiots. He literally called them idiots. He's like, they're idiots, terrible people. They don't know what they're doing. They said it would take 5 years to destroy ISIS. I'm like, why is it going to take 5 years to destroy ISIS?
It's cheaper to leave all our shit there.
And then he goes, yeah, it's cheaper to leave all our shit there. Literally, Milley said it's cheaper to leave everything there. And so he goes to the generals that are there, right? And he's like, how long is it going to take? Well, we can do this in a matter of weeks. Let's do it, boys. Let's go. Let's do it.
Soldiers first.
Right. So I think he understands the proper application of force and when it's necessary to actually use military force versus going out and doing stuff like Ukraine and Israel and Iran and all this kind of type of stuff that has more to do with proxy wars to make money for fascist aligned interests, right? That means government owned by corporations, or government and corporations in the same bed, fascism. So those types of things are going to suffer from Trump being elected into office. But
Right.
but those are the majority of global forces out there, right? They already control the majority of the nations that are out there. Canada, England, you know, there a lot of Europe, like they're all these countries that are sort of under the control of these totalitarian, dictatorial type of mentalities. They're non-constitutional. They hate the US Constitution. They hate freedom. They don't want personal empowerment for their citizens. You're talking about Xi Jinping's.
There's no everybody these days.
There's a bunch of them out there.
It's
Yes,
almost-
the majority of the.
I mean, even
world.
on our own side,
a lot of them even on our own side. Yeah,
UK, Europe, and shit.
right. The Five Eye countries and stuff.
Canada,
So, right. Australia, New Zealand is worse, but Australia. But I mean, so all that coalition, you know, whatever you want to call that coalition of tyrants, of global tyrants, central globalist type people. Those are the ones that really have it out for Trump because Trump is threatening that global world order.
Yes.
And he's threatening, so funny to say threatening in this way, but like he's threatening to actually bring freedom, liberty, democracy, free speech, you know, sovereignty, individual sovereignty to all the other countries of the world via the United States as taking the lead in that. So they don't like that.
No.
They don't want sovereignty for their people.
No.
They don't want personal empowerment for their people.
No.
But he does, and the people behind him do. MAGA people definitely want personal empowerment, personal sovereignty, capitalism, you know, commerce, the ability to do free trade and build your own dreams and make your dreams come true. The American dream can be given to the whole world. So
it's being a world power, but not a dictatorship.
No, the only way. Okay, so like let's talk about leadership.
It's a free market.
We can break off for a second and talk about leadership in business, right? So if you're a leader in business and you top down manage your company like a tyrant, how many people are you going to have working for you at the end of a year out of your 20 people? Fucking less. Yeah, whatever the answer is, it's people not 20. Like it's less than 20. They're not going to like
You're
that.
not going to be seen as a leader.
Now, what
You're
if
going to be seen as a fucking tyrant?
What if you start at 20 people?
Tyrants aren't leaders.
And you're leading from behind and you're actually supporting all of the people and providing what they need to be able to do their jobs better.
Yep.
Is that a better tactic?
Absolutely.
So that's the type of leadership we're talking about. That's sovereign leadership. And that is the way to really empower the world to become a better world, a more capable world.
Yeah.
You know? So, Trump wants to do that. The whole MAGA, you know, side of people.
You want that. I want that.
We want that. That's what this podcast
Will
is
wants that.
all about. Will doesn't know what he wants. Will's gonna do whatever he's sleeping or something, whatever the hell he's doing. The proof is in the pudding, so he's gonna prove what he wants by his results. So
I think he's manifesting shit through inception.
Yeah, there you go. Good. Let's see. Let's see how that works. And
we'll see if Trump wins or not, bro. We'll be like, Will, appreciate it. Huh?
The reason why these people are, the reason why I'm worried about Trump winning rather than worried about him not winning is because when he wins, the fucking head's been cut off the dragon.
Yeah.
They're going to be so pissed off and they're going to throw every possible thing into the ring to be able to get in his way.
Right.
We know this because when he was already on that track beforehand, they threw COVID into the ring.
Yeah.
They intentionally released the virus from the Wuhan laboratory in China and they released it to the whole rest of the world. And whether or not the virus was as impactful as they say it was actually, or whether it was driven by a mechanism of building the communal fear, like the mass formation psychosis, which there's lots of evidence that it was just driven to mass formation psychosis. If that's the case, then that's the case. And that means that is just the appetizer. That's the amuse-bouche.
Yeah. Because now the stakes are even higher.
Now the stakes are way fucking higher because we all know that now.
Exactly, right? And that's why I was saying, maybe COVID backfired on them some, right? Because now we were able to learn some things and we were able to see some things. right?
Big time.
And it wasn't that everybody saw it. A lot of people still don't see it. But what it is, it enlightened even just a certain number of people,
Yeah.
a smaller amount of people, but that's still enlightenment enough, right? To where, could you just imagine, man, had we not have this information out there and then we thought it was what they were trying to portray it to be, right? As long as you can get some people to wake up from that and see it for what it was, now they know some shit's coming.
Yep.
Right? So now they're less powerful.
Well, because they
grip
know
on us.
Totally. Like even the people who don't see it right now are people who aren't looking at it.
Yeah.
Once they
don't give a
look
fuck.
at it, if you actually present it to them, that's why they have to control the media, because if the media presented it
that's
to
why
them,
they have to control Kamala,
they would believe it.
Right? That's why Kamala's not going to go on Joe Rogan and stuff like that, because if you just see it, if you just see Trump, what he's trying to talk about, and what Kamala's saying, what she's trying to talk about, you can clearly see these things.
You just see what kind of person they are by having that conversation.
But you can see really what's good for each and every person, and then America as a whole, and you can see what's bad, and you can see who stands behind what. If you just look at it, people don't give a fuck, right? But so that being said, the more Trump going in, so would you rather have Trump not go in and then bypass this whole entree, this main dish?
Don't get it
course?
twisted. Don't get it twisted.
Right.
I'm not saying I'm worried in the sense that I don't want it to happen. It's just that I'm anticipating a big fucking blowback.
Oh yeah,
a big blowback.
It's their last hurrah. It's got to be their last hurrah.
I mean, I just got another power inverter to plug into the fucking truck to be, because if there's power outages or whatever, I mean, all the preppers that everybody thinks sound crazy, like all the Mike Glovers of the world and all the people that, the Tim Kennedys of the world that are like, hey, you better have your ish together before that day comes, because it's going to come a day when the sleeper cells that own, property around all of our military bases are activated, and then things actually start to pop off. Like that kind of stuff can actually happen. Like those type of things are not just some sort of a weird, conspiracy theory.
Everything's been leading up to those things happening.
Yeah.
Everything's leading up. We have a 20 million people.
What do we call them now? Reality theories, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they're reality
theories. That's all it is.
Because it's just an observation.
It's a theory about reality.
Right.
Because we don't know it for sure, but we know what our intuition tells us. We know what our mind tells us. We know what our eyes tell us, right?
Yeah.
So I see what you're saying.
As long as I don't have to look at too much ultraviolet light.
Right? And then you hear PBD getting on saying, hey, be ready, be prepared, right? Yeah, I heard Dan Bongino.
Oh, he's been saying that for a long time. Bongino's been on that for a while, but
have food for 3 to 6 months, right? Really get into the nitty gritty. It's you need to be prepared. I'm
beans and bullets.
Beans and bullets, yeah. I'm getting beans and rice, water. We need water.
Yeah, and water. Like they have the little pellets. The little water purification pellets.
Yeah.
Get some jars of those, man. Like so that way you can actually purify stagnant water, rainwater, whatever. Like I've used those out in Big Bend out there. You find a puddle somewhere and you have to like fill up your canteen and throw the fucking pellet in there and like shake it or dissolve it, like to wait 15 minutes or whatever, and then you can drink it.
But it works, right?
Yeah, it works. You got to filter out all the solids. But that type of stuff, like you got to have a general basic knowledge of some of that. I'm not a survivalist. I've never been to fucking SEER school. I'm not a military guy. I don't know all this. I'm not an expert in any of that stuff, but I know the basics enough to be able to go, okay, I know how I can start a fire. I know what kind of stuff I need to be able to survive. I know how to defend my home. I know how to check angles on a piece of property that you're defending against potential invaders and whatnot. So like those type of things, you need to be aware of that and be aware of your situation, have general situational awareness to be able to be prepared, even if you don't have the actual, physical tools. A lot of people have the tools, they don't even know how to use them, right? You're going to have to have knowledge more than anything else, because I mean, people are worried about having guns, right? Like, but I think if you're in a war zone, guns are probably pretty easy to find, right?
Right.
So if an area becomes a war zone where you actually need a gun, you don't need that many guns. What you really need is bullets, because you might be able to find a gun. Somebody
Yeah.
might get shot out in the street, and you can go, recover that at some point when it's safe to actually go recover that piece of equipment and say, okay, now I have a weapon system. It's now, but if you don't have the knowledge to know what it is that a 9mm? Is it a 40? Is it a 45? Is it is it a 6.5 Creedmoor? Is it a rifle? Is it a handgun? Those type of things, like, you need to know, okay, how does that work? How do I actually charge that to make it ready without making it go explode in my hand? Like, you have to be able to have the knowledge, and the practical application of the actual tool is more important than the tool itself.
Sure.
Because you can go find a tool and then be like, well, what's this? I don't know how to use this. Like, what's in this tube?
I mean, you're gonna need to know what kind of bullets to get, right?
You have to know what kind of bullets to get. If you put, if you try to stuff a 40 round into a 9mm, you're going to be in a bad place, bro.
Right.
You're not going to be happy with the results of that. So can you tell the difference between those? How do you tell the difference?
I can't tell the
between those?
difference.
Where's the bullet marked? Like, how do you know what the caliber is? Which one's bigger? A 40?
I'm thinking at the bottom.
The 9mm or the 40? I'll tell you right now, 40 is a wider caliber. It's a bigger caliber.
Right.
So, like, if you see somebody with a blue helmet that says "un" on the side of it, you better know how to aim.
Like a Uno, then they're missing the O.
Like they're Uno, but they're missing the O. I mean, I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen, but if you prepare for the worst and hope for the best. What does my fucking shirt say, man?
Pray for peace.
Prepare for war.
Prepare for war. Man.
Yeah. So that's why I'm worried about Trump getting elected more than I'm worried about him not getting elected. I'm pretty sure he's going to be the one who's going to be voted into office. It's just, what tactic are they going to choose to be able to get in the way? Because they have this whole menu of stuff that they can basically select from, and they can do election interference. They can do, the George Floyd style riots. They've got lots of people that they've led across the border that are obviously military age males, and who knows how. I mean, it's so easy to equip, a battalion of troops that's spread out throughout houses that the cartels bought, over the last 10 years. And they're just sprinkled all throughout neighborhoods all over the country. And shit, they're already taking over apartment complexes and stuff, right? Like,
only 4.
And those are those could be like the first forces in that are actually establishing what's called a forward operating base. And so those apartment complexes are basically forward operating bases for those people to go in. And when they get the rest of their troops in, they're just going to have barracks set up in there, and they're going to start setting up little operating bases inside the cities. It's hopefully that none of that happens, man. Hopefully, really, hopefully none of that happens. And everything's going to go, just fine. And there'll be a democratic transition, and like a transfer of power. Just like all the stuff that they complained about that Trump did, of course, they won't do any of that. They won't do any of the stuff that they are so afraid that Trump is going to do, right? We're so afraid that, didn't Kamala Harris literally tweet from her account, like, he's going to do lawfare against us? And you're like,
political lawfare, yeah.
What?
He's going to turn the military against us.
Who are you?
The best one is like,
they're literally
he's going to have the military
to
arrest us, right? But then, when they went ahead and moved forward and they signed, what was that article? 500, basically saying the military can use lethal force against civilians.
Yeah.
But they're the ones saying that Trump's going to be the one to do that.
Yeah.
Even though they're
you're the ones that
literally
through. Did that. Yeah.
Right. Then they're the ones that are literally doing it.
Yeah.
Right. Just like they were saying, I'm like, all you got to do is just look at it.
So that's why
it makes sense.
It's November 5th of 2024 is a major inflection point. It's going to be a day that lives in remember the 5th of November. That's
remember from November 5th to January 21st. that time right there is going to be
Correct.
a time like we've never seen before.
And people want to know if I'm like gonna make a decision on doing a deal, and I'm like, I ain't making no decision before January 21st of 2025, bro. Sorry. We're gonna figure something out. But, you know, I want to do. It looks like a good deal and everything, but I don't know what's gonna happen. So I'm not gonna take. This is not a time to be taking big financial risks.
No, but it's a time to be planning,
but calculating and planning.
Yes,
those,
calculate prior. Yeah, planning on such things and stuff like that. Don't take the risk yet.
That's
Be ready to seize an opportunity.
Yep.
When it comes up, just be weary of doing that shit. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
It's
and
coming.
that's what.
And the future does look bright.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And you know, it could be that turning, right? You know, they might have to go through absolute shit to come out on the other side.
I mean, look, this is something I hope Tim Pool is wrong about, because he's saying that
Tim
we're
Pool's
going,
wrong about a lot of things.
I think he's saying that we're going into. I don't know. I mean, there's probably some things, but he's pretty thorough in his ability to research topics and find the truth. He's more centrist than people really think. I mean, he has a reputation for being a milquetoast fence sitter. He's always in the middle of both things. So I give a lot of credibility to Tim for, despite his immaturity and his inability to be a good leader for his company, because he's 36 years old or whatever, and he doesn't know what he's doing yet. He's not had the time to sit and read John Maxwell books and be part of, you know what I mean? Like he's going to go into that next phase of his business, and he'll come out the other side either successful or not, but he needs the coaching and stuff. PBD came from a totally different school.
Yeah.
He built business.
They're a totally different person. You can see that.
Guy. But PBD's a seasoned leader, and he's already got, 10 or 12 years on Tim. Just on age alone. And so that's a whole different conversation. But yeah, I mean, the future definitely looks bright. And what's coming down the?
It bothers me how Tim
coming down the pipe is good.
Because Tim says a lot like, "What would the next Trump presidency look like?" Right, and he doesn't feel like there's going to be any accountability whatsoever. Right, let's say people.
Accountability in what sense?
Believe differently, like people being held accountable for the evil things or corrupt things that they've done.
Okay, so
and I don't know if it's going to be a whole. Like the whole Congress, right? Boom, goes to Gitmo and shit like that. Not necessarily that, but I think when you need to have some accountability this time around, I think that's what's going to be done.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some sense.
Especially like they've went all out against this man, right? Just himself, he can't he didn't arrest Hillary the first time around. He always says that he could have and stuff like that. I believe that what we were talking about earlier, he was basically preparing for his second term,
right,
and stuff like that. So
he was learning. He didn't have any experience as a politician. He didn't know what the hell he was doing.
It came into it, and then he's fighting two inaugurations.
I don't think he even thought.
Not inaugurations. He's fighting two impeachments and stuff like that, and he's just battling the whole way since he first stepped into it. Right, didn't have time, but he did do a lot of things. Right, but I think it's coming. You could just the moment that we're in, and the way shit is. Right, you definitely have to have some accountability here, or nothing's going to change. Right, and we can't move forward with the way that he's trying to get us to move forward.
Right.
Some people have to be held accountable by this point.
Yeah, you have to be really careful with using the justice system against people in visible positions of power, right? Because if you just throw the book at Hillary Clinton and throw her and Bill in prison or whatever kind of deal, it's like, okay, you're just doing what you just criminalized them for, right? You're not just there to just weaponize the justice system and do this and that.
Right, you're not taking out your political
the
opponent.
accountability, more important level of accountability is public accountability and actual like media coverage of the truth.
Yes.
That's what's more important than putting somebody in jail, right? I think. I don't think
Well,
putting,
yeah, but
putting that person, like putting
if
Hillary Clinton in a box, she already lives in a box. She's going to still be able to do bad shit from inside the box or outside the box. Gang, you know, I mean, mafia dons will run their fucking crews from inside the prison, right? Like that doesn't really change anything. What happens is when the news says this is a mafia don, this is what they're doing behind closed doors, this is what type of person this is. Now it disempowers them from being able to actually pull that con on everybody else again. So when you actually expose Hillary Clinton for everything she's done, maybe you have to use the court system for some of those things, but it doesn't mean that you have to just, you know, play lawfare like they did.
No,
like,
no, not necessarily like they did. But I'm looking at it like, okay, yeah, you can point out, you know, all the illegal and corrupt things somebody did. But if you don't hold them accountable for that,
you need to prove it in public.
Exactly.
You need to prove it in public.
But you still need that level of accountability, right? Or people are just saying, okay, she did all these nefarious, these illegal things, but nothing is happening to her. But nothing happens,
so you can get away with that, right?
Right.
Yeah, something.
Then law and order means nothing.
Correct. Yeah. So something does have to happen, but I mean, yeah, you have to have definitely some accountability. You just have to be careful that you don't.
You're right.
You don't swing the pendulum so far back the other way.
I think that's why he didn't throw Hillary in jail the first time.
Correct. Yeah, he understood that.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's what he's doing now.
Yeah, there's a level of concern for the overall health of the community and the society, let alone the nation. Right. Like. Right.
You got to show the people, but then you still have to.
You have to be human at some point, you know, you have to actually practice what you preach and have some mercy and some forgiveness within your, your system. Yeah.
He's done that. He's been doing that and stuff like that. Like I get, you know, trying to just kill this man, right? You know, trying to take his life, you know, just like you said, all these, like calling him Hitler and stuff like that. All the shit they've given to this man.
They're inciting the hell out of people, man.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, you're like, you know, him himself, Trump himself, right? You know, just being the person, man, that they've just attacked for a long time now, stuff like that. You know, I mean, just being a human being, you have to correctly, right? Friggin' hold some people accountable.
Yeah.
And, you know, and of course, let it be known. Don't just arrest people and be like, you know, she was an evil person. You're doing exactly what they did, right? But having information and displaying it to the people that's not suppressed, right? That's not, you know, censored at all. True, real information. I think we're going to get all of that. Not just from the corruption and everything like that and the evil things that people are doing, but, you know, all the way around the health world and stuff like that. You know, we're going to see true information.
Yeah.
You know,
the information is what is going to win. Really, actually teaching people, like, so if you taught people Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, if that was required reading in all high schools, they wouldn't be able to actually do all of the BLM crap that they do.
Yeah,
because
people would be.
They know the tactic. People already know. Right. Okay, this is mid-level violence, or this is, you know,
that's a psyop.
The mantra for them is that the purpose of my action is my enemy's reaction. Right. So they're trying to get your enemy to react. So part of the purpose behind all their lawfare attacks on Trump is that they want him to actually get into office, and they want him to throw the book at everybody and start putting accountability on everybody. Right. Because that's what they're doing. They're like, oh, but we're just holding him accountable. We're just holding him accountable. They're bullying him through that system. And all they want is for him to react to that. And those people that are putting their fingers in his face and telling him, I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. They want him to smack their head off so that they can say, oh, look, we told you he was literally Hitler.
Right.
And if we're not careful, it will work, because a lot of the stuff that's even white hat propaganda behind the right that's trying to really instill like Christian values, for example. Christian nationalism is a perfect example of this. Like the whole Christ is King thing, right? Everyone's running around going, Christ is King, Christ is King. Well, to me, you might as well be saying like Sieg Heil, right? You're the same as that. Or you might as well be saying like, Black Lives Matter. It's exactly the same thing because it's a mindless, automatic repetition of a cult phrase. It's no longer sovereign thought, which is actually one of the critical, fundamental tenets of Scottish liberalism, true American liberalism, which is what we want. We want people to actually be free and independent thinkers and empowered to be able to form their own opinions and understand what's going on. Like,
Absolutely.
What is fifth generational warfare? What does that mean? What are psychological operations tactics? What does that mean? Right? So we need to be able to give people the information behind that. Who is Saul Alinsky? What was the Acorn Institute? How is Obama and Clinton and all those people like associated with these type of things? Where have they used those particular tactics? For me, taking that kind of curtain down is 1,000 times more powerful than throwing somebody in jail or putting them in a courtroom and going, oh yeah, well you deleted all their emails or whatever. Like, yeah, that's all just like a bunch of nitpicking stuff. And all you're doing is escalating the combat fight. You're using lawfare, but you're still throwing punches. Your punches are just like, crimes against each other. Really, if you expose the information and you actually expose the tactics, it's like shining a flashlight on somebody hiding in the bushes that's doing an ambush. The ambush doesn't work anymore. Now they're there.
Yeah.
You know their tactics. So once people know their tactics, once we actually teach people what the tendency of communist revolutions is, how they actually operate, the tactics that they use to infiltrate countries and societies and communities, now it's going to be next to impossible for them to do that because nobody wants to be infiltrated. Nobody wants to be ideologically captured and taken over by, people with nihilistic tendencies. People want sovereignty. They want success. They want their lives to be happy and peaceful and productive. And, those things don't come from nihilism and they don't come from the infiltration of those types of thought paradigms into a community or into a society. Doesn't benefit anybody. At the end of the day, it doesn't even benefit the people that are doing they're just that's why they're useful idiots. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't end up benefiting them. They just think that it will because they have this utopian vision in their head and they don't live inside reality. They live in some, that's the whole problem with Marx was that he never lived in reality. He was just unproductive loser, fat, dirty fuck that never did anything with his life. And he just thought that was everybody else's fault. He's the consummate victim. And that anyone who follows his philosophy is going to be a consummate victim as well.
So if what you really want to do is show people these tactics, give them this information, right? One of the battles with that is getting them to learn this, and first and foremost, just see it, because that's kind of the problem we're having now, right? We were just talking about that earlier.
Yeah,
they're like, it's out there for people. People just aren't paying attention to it. They're not looking at it. They're not.
Yeah, well, there's also fog of war. There's fog of information war, right? The fog of war is like when you're in combat and there's just so much going on, you don't even know who's who or what's what, and people get friendly fired, and like you don't know what to do if you have the high ground or if you're supposed to go to that building or whatever.
Right.
It's like a fog of war.
That's almost how it is right now,
but
right?
it's like that with information.
Who's lying?
It's like that with information, exactly. Who's telling the truth? Who's lying? What are the sources? How do I check those sources?
Right.
How do I even confirm?
Because you can't Google shit anymore. Right?
No, you can't Google shit anymore.
You can't
either.
do that. So people don't even know that much.
But you can, but you just have to know how to filter it. Right. You have to know how to use the filter.
That's like advanced knowledge right there.
Okay, but listen, 500 years ago, reading was advanced knowledge right there.
Sure.
So learning how to code, learning how to think critically, those are all things that we're going to do as a species that's going to lead to the next level of evolution of humanity. And it's not an if, it's a when, right? This is, I have absolute certainty and faith in whatever you want to call God, the creator, the universe, the system of evolution that we're all in, the circle of the wheel of karma, whatever, it's all going to evolve us into the right place, right? It's just a matter of perspective. And if you have a perspective of a victim, your life's going to suck. If you have a perspective of a sovereign individual who creates their own destiny, your life's going to fucking kick ass. Our lives kick ass because we have the attitude of sovereign creators.
I love life.
I love life. And I love God's creation. This is like, it's a miracle to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're so blessed.
But I'm not going to run around and throw my fists in there and say Christ is king, because that's obviously an automaton, right? A person who's running around doing that lacks the ability to think critically.
Right.
They're like a person 500 years ago who couldn't read, who's just doing what everybody
because
tells
that's
them.
not going to teach anybody anything.
No.
You know, that's probably going to make them think that
maybe Christ
have
is
nothing to
king.
teach. Right.
It doesn't matter.
But that's not how you
That's
spread
not
the
point.
message.
That's not the point.
Yeah. That's not how you give it to others.
They're not going to realize the truth of that statement by just repeating it like a bunch of
you just
lemons.
saying it is not what's going to do it.
No.
Right.
You have to do the work to have the realizations.
Yeah. You have to, man, it's not teach. It's not explain really, but you know.
Well, you have to learn.
You have to, yeah.
You have to learn.
Right. And that's going to tell you how to go about enlightening somebody else.
If you're in a constant state of beginner's mind, a constant learning mind and open mind,
you're just going to get dominated by anything you try to say.
Or you're going to be able to investigate. You have to have if you're in a constant learning mind, that means that you're thinking critically and that you're investigating the information and you're not just taking it at face value, just repeating it.
Because you're curious.
Because you're curious. You have to have that innate curiosity.
Yes.
To be able to go to the next level,
right.
To have sovereignty and personal empowerment and all those type of things.
And especially to be able to teach somebody else.
Yes, for sure.
Or spread that type of message.
The best way to teach somebody else, in my opinion, is by example. You know, you can sit there and preach at people and tell them, this is very well demonstrated in the kitchen. This is a super easy example.
And this is why
if you're going to teach somebody how to pick up a pasta properly, and you can't do it yourself, then how the hell is that person ever going to learn to do it?
Right.
They have to learn from somebody who already knows how to do it. So you have to be the example first. You have to enact the example first. And if you're trying to go and teach a team full of cooks how to dice an onion and you can't even hold your fucking knife properly, then you're not going to teach shit. Right. You're gonna figure out real fast. And they're gonna figure out even faster that you're completely full of shit and you're not the guy that they're gonna listen to.
Yep.
But if you know how to actually wield that knife and you know how to cut that onion 10 different fucking ways, then one person who maybe like stands a little bit different and has a different angle might use this technique. That person might use a different technique, but you're going to learn how to get them to produce the same product at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, and you can only do that because
that's part of knowing
you can produce that product.
In order to know something, you have to be able to, in this case, do that thing.
Right.
Right. But just.
So you're only going to know Christ is king if you act Christ-like.
Yeah.
If you do your best to follow that path and follow the example and be the way, the truth, and the light, then you're gonna look like a king. You're gonna feel like a king.
Yeah.
And other people are gonna go, hey,
they're
man,
gonna just see that.
That's cool. I want to do that. How do you do that?
Right.
And then now they're asking, now you're able to teach. But if they're not asking and you're not doing, then you ain't got shit. You just have a bunch of this, you know? And
exactly.
And none of this.
And see, man, that's why I get in the sun all the time now, right? You know? And that's why, you know,
because of this.
Yeah,
yeah,
it helps. It helps, bro. Nitrous oxide, bro. Nitrous oxide, man, it gets blood flowing.
Is the nitrous oxide created through sunlight?
Yeah, well, sunlight helps blood be less viscous.
Oh, really? Okay. It melts it. Like putting the butter out in the middle of the sun, like it gets liquidy. Yeah.
Once like, you know, that
I eat a lot of butter and coconut oil and shit like
good.
that. So it's
good.
So, but if that's in there and it's floating around and you're in the cold, it's gonna be like, oh, I'm frozen.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
Yeah. You know, like let me get the name right. Let me get the name right. The Sherpas.
Yeah, the Sherpas in the Himalayas.
Right? You know, you can either tell people all about them, right? And they're gonna be like, that's a bunch of horse shit.
Or you can just go to
these fucking guys triple, triple. They carry triple times their body weight. They're these small little fuckers, but they're carrying things that the big dudes can't carry, and they just live in the cold, and all they eat is fucking butter and shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? Fuck that shit, right? But if you start becoming a Sherpa, right, you get on a ketogenic diet, right? Practice cold therapy and shit like that, right? You get out in the sun, right? And you get melon, you get tan and stuff like that, you know? Then you start carrying fucking fools down a mountain and shit because they can't do shit. They can't carry themselves, right? That's how you show them, right? That's all I'm trying to do, man.
Carry people down mountains.
Be a Sherpa.
Trying to be a Sherpa. I like it, man.
I was just using that as an example, right?
No,
But that's kind of why I do the certain things that I do, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, look, I could study, I could research, and I could educate myself all about it, right? I don't know how that's gonna affect me exactly, right? You know, I don't know. The only way you just fuck around and find out,
Yeah.
right? You know?
That's a great example. The Sherpas is a really great example because they
It sounds like a crazy fucking story, but these were actual people.
Do you know who the Gurkhas are?
No.
You go from Sherpa to Gurkha.
I can't. This is the rabbit hole I've been talking
You're gonna
about.
go. You're gonna go on a Gurkha rabbit hole. Man.
Are we talking about?
No, these guys are from Nepal. They're like a warrior. They're like the Navy SEALs basically of Nepal. The Gurkha. Look it up, man. I'll send you a link. I met some of these guys when I was in Macau. They were security all over the place in Macau. They were always the security guys in all the casinos. And I would be at the bars and I would drink with them sometimes. And those guys are super fucking cool dudes.
Dude,
Super
shit happens.
cool guys.
That's who we need to go fucking surround ourselves with. Gurkhas and Sherpas.
Yep.
You know? Go to the Himalayan mountains, man. Be like, yo, let's go fight these motherfuckers. The blue helmets. Ain't got nothing against the Sherpas and the Gurkhas.
Those blue helmets are weak, bro.
I know.
They're not like blue light. They're not. Those helmets aren't blue because of the light.